My name is Alice Frenette, and I was 33 years old the evening I realized the life I thought I understood was already gone. For 9 years, my boyfriend Tony and I had lived a predictable, comfortable rhythm quiet mornings with shared coffee, late night shows, weekend trips, and the kind of routines that make you believe stability is something you can trust. We'd grown up together in a way, meeting in our mid-20s when neither of us had any idea who we were yet. I thought that meant we were safe. I thought that meant we were unshakable. I truly believed our relationship was solid. That Tuesday night in March began like any other. I came home around 6, tossed my bag on the entryway bench, and expected to hear Tony's usual greeting, or at least the hum of a TV or speaker. Instead, I found him sitting on the couch in complete silence, hands clasped, eyes fixed on me as if he'd been waiting. It was the stillness that bothered me first. Tony was never still. "Alice," he said quietly, "we need to talk." My stomach tightened immediately, and I sat across from him, trying to keep my voice steady. He started speaking slowly, deliberately, like someone who'd prepared a script in his head. He talked about life, about personal development, about how people evolve. At first, it all sounded like abstract musings he might have read online. But then he said he'd been thinking about experiences we might be missing, experiences that could supposedly help us grow. I asked what kind of experiences he meant. His answer hit me like a cold wind. "I think we should open our relationship." For a moment, I didn't know how to respond. I simply stared at him, trying to reconcile the man I lived with and trusted with the one in front of me now. Tony leaned forward, speaking faster and with a strange confidence as he explained how ethical non-monogamy was supposedly healthy and increasingly common. He insisted it would still mean commitment, that we would still be partners, that we would just have more freedom to explore connections with other people. The more he talked, the more I felt the ground shifting beneath me. "Is there someone specific?" I asked, because instinctively I already knew the truth. He hesitated just long enough to confirm everything, but he forced out a quick denial. "No, it's not about anyone. It's about us evolving." His expression remained calm, almost optimistic, as if he expected me to be excited about this newfound philosophy. When I asked what would happen if I said no, he looked at me with a strange mix of frustration and self-righteousness. He said he'd feel trapped, held back, unable to become who he was meant to be. He tried to soften it by saying he didn't feel trapped by me, just by monogamy, but at that point, the distinction felt insulting. He reached for my hand and asked me to think about it. I didn't trust my voice enough to say anything real, so I nodded mechanically and told him I would. He smiled, actually smiled, as if the conversation had gone exactly the way he planned. That smile unsettled me more than his request. It wasn't the expression of someone afraid to lose the person they love. It was the expression of someone who had already put the pieces in place and believed he had nothing to fear. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay beside him, listening to his steady breathing, feeling a knot of dread tightening in my chest. His distance over the past 2 months suddenly took on a new meaning. The extra gym sessions, the late nights finishing projects, the constant texting, the way he angled his phone away from me. And then there was Hannah, the trainer he'd mentioned too often with too much enthusiasm. Hannah showed him new workouts. Hannah recommended supplements. Hannah said he was making incredible progress. I hadn't thought much of it at the time, but now every mention replayed in my head with painful clarity. Around 2 in the morning, I slipped out of bed and went to the living room. I wasn't looking for proof, not consciously, but something deeper inside me already knew the truth, and it pushed me forward. I opened our shared phone account. Tony and I had joined plans years ago. Neither of us ever thought we'd need to hide anything. I scrolled through the call and text logs, and the number of messages to an unfamiliar number hit me instantly. Hundreds of texts, dozens of calls, some lasting nearly an hour, all within the last 2 months. My throat tightened as I opened our joint credit card statements. 3 weeks earlier, a hotel charge appeared the same weekend he told me he'd been at a work conference. I clicked on our shared location app, next something we only kept activated for emergencies. He had never turned his off. I watched the map load and saw that he'd spent multiple evenings at an apartment complex across town. Not his office, not his gym, not anywhere he was supposed to be. I copied the address, opened Instagram, and searched. It took less than a minute to find Hannah's profile, and in several of her posts, the background matched the apartment complex. Exactly same balconies, same exterior walls, same view from the parking lot. In that moment, everything snapped into focus. Tony wasn't asking for an open relationship because he wanted growth or exploration or shared evolution. He was asking because he'd already crossed the line probably more than once, and he wanted my permission after the fact. He wanted the comfort of a committed partner while enjoying the thrill of someone new without consequences. I set my phone down. Slowly, my pulse still racing. The shock wasn't as sharp as I expected. It was quieter, colder, like my mind had already begun preparing for this, even before he said a word. I looked around our living room, the framed photos, the bookshelves we built together. The kitchen light, slightly flickering, the way it always did, and I felt a strange detachment settle over me. Tony had already left me emotionally. He just didn't expect me to leave him back, and certainly not on my own terms. That was the moment I decided I would not beg, negotiate, or bargain for respect. I would reclaim it, and he would never see it coming. The morning after my discovery, Tony acted like everything was normal. He kissed my cheek before leaving for work, brewed himself coffee, scrolled his phone with a faint smile that made my stomach twist, and walked out the door without a clue that the ground beneath him had already shifted. I watched him back his car out of the driveway and disappear down the street. The moment he was gone, the quiet in the house felt different. Not heavy, but hollow, like a space waiting to be cleared. I sat at the kitchen table and made a list. I've always been the kind of person who handles emotional devastation the same way some people handle taxes, systematically, efficiently, and with a strange, almost clinical calm. Shock hadn't broken me. It had sobered me. Tony wanted growth. Fine. I would grow too, just not in the way he envisioned. He might have betrayed us in secret, but I would exit in daylight with precision. The first thing on my list was a lawyer. I took a long lunch break that Friday and met with a family attorney downtown. The office was sleek, full of glass walls and quiet confidence. The attorney, a middle-aged woman with sharp eyes and sharper instincts, listened as I explained the situation. The infidelity, the open relationship request, the hotel charges, the shared finances. She nodded slowly, taking notes, occasionally looking up as if confirming details she already understood perfectly. "You're not married," she clarified, "but you've built a life equivalent to one. Joint accounts, shared, assets, cohabitation agreements. You can dissolve this cleanly, but you need to protect yourself financially before you say a word to him." "I'm ready to do that," I said. She outlined everything I needed: remove his access to shared funds, create a new bank account, move my important documents, secure any assets in my name, and prepare a separation filing. The calmness in her voice magnified the clarity in mine. I signed the retainer. She began drafting the paperwork. That afternoon, I drove straight to the bank. I opened a new checking account at another branch somewhere Tony would never think to look. I transferred my direct deposit immediately and left only enough money in our joint account to cover his half of the bills for the month. Nothing extra. For years, I'd paid the majority of our expenses. He'd become comfortable with the financial cushion I provided. But that cushion was gone now. He just didn't know it yet. Next, I called our credit card companies. I was the primary holder on every account. Tony was an authorized user. Within 10 minutes, his name was quietly removed from all three cards. No confrontation, no announcement, just a clean severing of financial dependency. On Saturday morning, while Tony was at the gym and I no longer needed to wonder who he was probably seeing there, I began packing. Not all my belongings, not yet. Just the essentials: my documents, passport, birth certificate, tax records, sentimental keepsakes I didn't trust him with, and a selection of clothes. I opened a storage unit the previous evening and drove 3 carloads over the course of the afternoon. Every time I returned to the house, the space felt less like home, and more like a stage I was preparing to exit. I found our wedding photo album. Well, not a wedding album, but the thick collection of photographs we'd called our life book, documenting everything from our first apartment to trips abroad. I carried it out to the trash bin and dropped it in without even a second thought. Not because I hated what it represented, but because it no longer represented anything at all. On Sunday, I took care of the car. Tony's car, a silver 2022 sedan, was in my name. We'd purchased it using my credit, my income, my down payment. He made occasional contributions to maintenance, but the car was legally mine. And now morally, I no longer felt obligated to maintain a luxury he enjoyed at my expense. I called our insurance company and removed him as a driver. Then I contacted a dealership, got an estimate, and arranged for the car to be towed there Monday morning. They bought it immediately. I deposited the check into the joint account because I wasn't a thief, but he wasn't keeping a car I paid for while he spent nights in someone else's apartment. By Monday noon, everything was ready except the final confrontation. I'd already found a small studio apartment, month-to-month lease, minimal furnishings, perfect for disappearing quickly. The walls were white and bare, the floors plain, the bathroom tiny. But it was mine. Peaceful. Quiet. A place untouched by lies. The last step was packing the remainder of my things from the house. Clothing I could replace later, books I didn't need immediately, leftover personal items. I filled 2 more boxes, drove them to the studio, and placed them neatly against the wall beside my bed. Every task, every checklist item, every documented decision made the situation feel less like abandonment and more like reclamation. I wasn't running away. I was orchestrating my exit with precision Tony never believed I possessed. And then came Tuesday. Exactly 1 week after he sat on our couch and asked for an open relationship, I returned to the house with the separation papers in my bag and a clarity so sharp it bordered on coldness. Tony was in the bedroom, humming while getting ready. He didn't even look nervous. "Hey, babe," he said lightly. "I'm heading out soon. Meeting Hannah tonight. Shouldn't be too late." He said it casually, like he was talking about a dentist appointment. There was no shame, no hesitation, no guilt, just enthusiasm. The kind you reserve for something or someone you're looking forward to. "Actually," I said, my voice steady, "we need to talk before you go." He checked the time. "Can it wait?" "I'm supposed to meet her in 30 minutes. "No," I answered, "it can't." A tiny flicker of unease crossed his face. Just the beginning. He had no idea how much his life was about to change. Tony paused in the doorway, keys dangling from his hand, the faint note of confidence slipping from his expression. He wasn't scared yet, just irritated that I was delaying his plans. That alone told me everything I needed to know about the state of our relationship. There was a time when my voice, especially when tense, would have made him drop everything. Now I was an inconvenience. He stepped back into the kitchen. "What's going on, Alice? I told you I have plans." "I know," I said calmly. "Sit down." Something in my voice, quiet level, unshakable, finally made him obey. He sat slowly, confusion growing. I reached into my bag and pulled out the manila envelope. I didn't slide it toward him dramatically. I simply placed it on the table between us. "What's this?" he asked. "Open it." He frowned, tore the seal, and pulled out the stack of documents. His eyes scanned the first page. He blinked once, then again. Color drained from his face. "A separation agreement," he choked. "What is this?" "Exactly what it looks like." "You're kidding," he said, but the tremor in his voice betrayed him. "Alice, come on, this isn't funny." "I'm not joking." He threw the papers on the table. "You're being ridiculous, all because of one conversation." "One conversation," I repeated, eyebrows lifting. "Is that what you call what you've been doing for the last 2 months?" His jaw tightened. "Alice, you asked for an open relationship," I continued, "but only after you'd already opened it yourself." He froze. I leaned back, keeping my voice steady. Hundreds of texts to a number I didn't recognize. Dozens of calls. Long ones. A hotel charge 3 weeks ago. Regular trips to an apartment complex across town, the same building Hannah posts photos in. His entire body stiffened. "It's not what you think." "It's exactly what I think." I folded my arms. "And you've been doing it long enough that you've stopped realizing how careless you've become." He stood pacing between the counter and the fridge, running his hands through his hair in growing panic. "I can explain." "I don't need an explanation." I pointed to the papers. "I need your signature." "You're just going to throw away 9 years, just like that. You threw it away the second you decided to cheat, and then asked me to pretend it was personal growth." His expression shifted from panic to anger. "I made a mistake. Multiple mistakes. Repeatedly, for months." I was confused, he insisted. "I didn't want to hurt you." "You didn't want consequences," I corrected. "That's different." He stopped pacing and glared at me. "So now you're punishing me, selling my car behind my back." I interrupted him smoothly. "The car was in my name. I paid for it. I handled the insurance. You drove it as a privilege, not a right." His face twisted. "How am I supposed to get around?" "I don't know, Tony. Maybe ask Hannah, or take the bus." He grabbed his phone, eyebrows knitting together as he opened his banking app. His expression dropped completely when he saw our joint account balance. "Where's the rest of the money?" he demanded. "In my account," I answered. "Where it belongs. You can't just—" "I left your portion. Exactly what you contributed to our joint finances over the last 3 months, which, in case you forgot, isn't much." His ears turned red. "This is financial abuse." "No," I replied calmly. "Financial abuse is letting someone fund your life while you sneak around with someone else. I simply stopped paying for your affair. He slammed his hand on the table. I can't believe you're doing this. I didn't flinch. He stormed toward the front door, grabbing his keys from the bowl. I'm leaving. I'm not staying here for this. I followed him outside, watching as he approached the driveway, stopping dead when he saw the empty space where the car used to be. Where's my car? He shouted. I already told you. Sold. You what? You heard me. He stared at me like I'd betrayed him, as if the act of reclaiming something that was legally mine was somehow worse than him cheating on me with another woman for 2 months. He looked down at his phone with frantic urgency, opening his credit card app and trying one card after another. Declined, declined, declined. His voice cracked. Alice, what did you do? I removed you as an authorized user. Those were my cards. He swallowed hard, then tried one more desperate move, opening the Uber app. Another decline. I didn't even need to say anything. The reality sank in all on its own. How am I supposed to get anywhere? He whispered. You're an adult, Tony. You'll figure it out. He stared at me, breathing shallowly. You're enjoying this. No, I said truthfully. Not even a little. But I respect myself enough not to fund your lifestyle while you explore personal growth with someone else. He stood there silently for a long moment, chest rising and falling with shaky breaths. His face softened, not with sincerity, but with fear. Alice, please, he said quietly. We can fix this. We can't. I'll stop seeing her. You should have thought of that before you started. He took a step closer, reaching for my hand the way he used to when he wanted to make peace after an argument. I stepped back. You don't love me anymore, he whispered, voice cracking. I love myself more, I said. Finally. His expression collapsed into devastation, but I didn't let it sway me. I had cried enough already, just not in front of him. Sign the papers, I said calmly. That's all I need from you now. He lowered his gaze, defeated. For the first time, he understood he had lost control of the situation, and he wasn't ready for what losing me actually meant. The days after the confrontation were uglier than the confrontation itself. Tony didn't sign the papers immediately. Of course he didn't. Instead, he spiraled. At first he tried panic, then guilt, then charm, and when none of those worked, he escalated to anger, desperation, and finally a kind of shameless pleading that would have broken me months earlier. But by the time he began unraveling, I was already emotionally gone. It started the very next morning. He called me 6 times before I even finished my coffee. I didn't pick up. He sent long text messages, paragraphs that tried to combine apologies with rationalizations. I was confused. I never meant to hurt you. We were drifting, and I didn't know how to talk about it. Hannah didn't mean anything compared to you. When those didn't get a response, he switched to guilt. You're really giving up over one mistake. 9 years mean nothing to you. When that failed, he switched again. You're being cold. This isn't like you. This is cruel, Alice. You're not cruel. Don't do this to us. I muted the conversation, finished getting dressed, and drove to work. By lunch, he'd called 14 times. By evening, 26. The next day, I blocked his number. That should have been the end of the noise, but Tony had never believed he could be shut out of my life. He showed up at my workplace the following afternoon, pacing outside the building's glass doors, with a bouquet of supermarket flowers clutched awkwardly in one hand. My coworkers stared as I arrived, walking into the lobby with my jaw set. Alice, thank God, he said, rushing toward me. You can't keep ignoring me. I can, I replied evenly. And I will. He tried to push the flowers into my hands. I didn't take them. Please, he said, voice trembling. Let's just talk. 5 minutes. That's all I need. My attorney told me not to have any in-person discussions with you, I said. It wasn't true. My attorney never said that, but he didn't need to know. Please leave. The building's security guard approached. Is everything okay here? I nodded, but didn't take my eyes off Tony. He doesn't have permission to be here. Tony's face fell. Alice, seriously. You need to go, I said. He tried to reach for my arm instinctively, not aggressively, but the guard stepped between us. Tony's expression crumpled as they escorted him outside. I stayed in the lobby until they verified he had driven away, or more accurately, been picked up by an Uber. Someone else must have called for him. I doubted he'd told Hannah the truth, but I imagined she wouldn't be thrilled about becoming his emergency transportation system. That evening, his mother called. I didn't answer, but she left a voicemail, her voice tight with indignation. Alice, I don't know what's going on between you and Tony, but you can't just walk out on a relationship like this. A good woman stands by her partner. Please call me back so we can discuss this. I deleted the message. His sister texted the next morning. Tony's heartbroken. You're being cold. You're destroying him. I typed back one sentence. He destroyed us first. A few hours later, she sent a new message. I didn't know about the cheating. I'm sorry, I didn't reply. By the end of the week, Tony's panic had turned into something darker. He emailed me using new addresses, each filled with desperate appeals. He sent photos of us, trips we'd taken, moments we'd captured, and attached memories like anchors, hoping the weight would pull me back. But all I felt was the hollow ache of something already dead. 2 weeks after the breakup, late on a Thursday night, I heard a faint knock at my studio apartment door. It was hesitant, like whoever stood outside wasn't sure if they deserved to be there. Through the peephole, I saw Tony. He looked terrible. Not dramatic movie terrible, but the kind of terrible that comes from several days of no sleep, no routine, no direction. His eyes were red, his hair unwashed, clothes wrinkled, posture slouched, as if his spine itself had given up. Please, he said when I opened the door, but blocked the entrance with my body. Just 5 minutes. I swear, 5 minutes. Against my better judgment, I stepped aside, letting him in. I didn't offer him a seat. He stood awkwardly in the middle of the room. The place was small enough that he couldn't miss the details: my neatly stacked boxes, the absence of anything personal on the walls, the quiet stillness that felt nothing like the home we once shared. Hannah broke up with me, he said quietly. I didn't respond. She didn't want all of this. Responsibility, emotions, anything real. His voice cracked. She blocked me. I don't even blame her. I folded my arms. Okay. Tony looked at me, eyes glistening. I was stupid, Alice. So unbelievably stupid. I got caught up in something that wasn't real. It felt exciting. I thought it meant something. And I ruined the only real thing I ever had. I'm so sorry. I watched him, and for a brief moment, I felt the echo of the woman I used to be, the one who would have rushed forward to soothe him, to fix it, to forgive him. But that version of me was gone. She'd walked out the same night I discovered the truth. I love you, he whispered desperately. I never stopped loving you. No, I said, voice steady. You loved what I provided. My stability, my emotional labor, my income, my loyalty. But you didn't respect me, and without respect, love isn't worth anything. He stepped closer as if he thought proximity alone could soften my resolve. We can go to therapy, he begged. I'll do anything. Just don't end us. There is no us, I said gently. There hasn't been for a long time. His breath stuttered. Please. Sign the papers, I said. That's all that's left. Silence fell, thick, painful, definitive. Tony looked around my little apartment at the walls he no longer had any claim to, and something in his expression finally broke. Not manipulation, not anger, just the quiet acknowledgement of consequences he never imagined would reach him. He nodded, slowly defeated. If that's what you want. It's what I need. He walked to the door, paused, and murmured a soft, shattered goodbye, then stepped into the hallway. I closed the door behind him without hesitation. For the first time in months, the air in the room felt light. Tony's chaos had swirled around me like a storm, but I had finally stepped out of it. And although the quiet felt unfamiliar, it also felt like the first real peace I'd had in years. The day Tony signed the papers felt strangely anticlimactic. I had braced myself for drama, another wave of pleading or anger or desperate bargaining. But instead, he simply showed up at my attorney's office at the scheduled time, avoided my eyes, and signed his name with a trembling hand. No speech. No last-minute attempt to reverse everything. Just a quiet, resigned signature that closed 9 years of history with a single stroke of ink. When the attorney handed me my copy, she gave a small approving nod. This is clean, she said. You handled everything efficiently. Efficient. Not emotional, not impulsive, efficient. That felt like the truest summary of how I'd navigated the wreckage Tony left behind with a clear head and a steady hand. The house went on the market soon after. We both agreed selling was the only logical option. Neither of us wanted to live in a space filled with memories we could no longer pretend were happy. When the sale finally closed in May, we each walked away with roughly $75,000. I could have pushed harder. After all, I'd paid far more of the mortgage and upkeep than he ever had, but I didn't want to drag anything out. Money wasn't worth prolonging the connection. What I wanted was distance, solitude, a reset. My new apartment was small but bright, perched on the 5th floor of a quiet building with a view of the city skyline. At night, the lights shimmered, like gentle reminders that life continued beyond heartbreak. I bought a new sofa, a new coffee table, and new dishes, nothing extravagant, just items that didn't carry shadows of Tony's choices. I slept better, I breathed easier. I woke up without the dread that used to creep into my chest whenever Tony came home late with weak excuses. I also reconnected with friends I hadn't realized I'd drifted away from. Slowly, painfully, I admitted to myself that Tony had always disliked them. Subtly at first, comments about them being too dramatic or too negative, then more directly until I eventually stopped seeing them. Now with him gone, I reached out. We had brunches again, laughed again, rebuilt connections that had frayed quietly in the background of my relationship. Every time one of them said, "I've missed you," it hit me how much I had lost, trying to maintain a partnership Tony had already abandoned emotionally. Oddly, the only person who kept appearing in my life unintentionally was Tony's sister, Emily. She wasn't someone I had ever been close to, but we often ended up in the same neighborhood spaces. Once I saw her at the grocery store messaging someone furiously as she walked past me without noticing. Another time she sat 2 tables away at a cafe while I worked on my laptop. I didn't acknowledge her. Either politeness felt like a relic of another life. But a few weeks later, as I waited for my order at a small coffee shop near my building, she approached me deliberately. "Alice," she asked cautiously. I looked up. "Emily." She shifted awkwardly, clutching her phone. "Can I talk to you for a second?" I nodded. She sat across from me, smoothing her sweater, clearly rehearsing her words. "I saw Tony last week," she began. "He's not doing well. He moved back in with Mom and Dad. He's working full-time now, but he's struggling financially. The breakup hit him hard." I sipped my coffee. I'm sure it did. She hesitated. "He regrets everything. I mean, he really regrets it." I nodded once, offering no comfort. "He said you wouldn't talk to him at all, that you just cut him out." "I didn't cut him out," I corrected. "He ended us when he started seeing someone else." Emily looked down, shame flickering across her face. "I know," she murmured. He's hurting Alice, and he still loves you." "He loved the life I provided," I said quietly. "Not me." She met my eyes. There was no argument this time, not like before when she insisted I was being cold or dramatic or cruel. Now she just looked tired. "Do you ever think, maybe you two could talk, just for closure?" "I already got my closure," I answered. Emily swallowed hard. "He told me he'd give anything for a second chance." I stared out the window at the passing cars, letting the quiet stretch for a moment. Then I tilted my head slightly. "Would you take back a partner who cheated on you for months, lied daily, and then asked for permission after the fact to keep doing it?" She opened her mouth, then shut it. She didn't attempt to answer. The silence was its own reply. "I thought so," I said gently. She stood, slowly nodded, and murmured, "I'm sorry, Alice," before leaving the cafe. I breathed out a long, steady exhale that felt like sealing a chapter. The following week, I got a text from a new number. I normally ignored unknown numbers, but something about the wording made me pause. "Alice, it's me. I never stopped loving you. Please don't block this one." I stared at the message for a long time, feeling nothing. Not anger, not longing, not sadness. Just an absence, a quiet space where something used to be. Then I typed my reply. "You never started respecting me." I hit send, blocked the number, and placed my phone face down on the table. Outside my window, the city glowed softly, a reminder that life moves forward whether you cling to the past or